Hello, everybody, it's Tim here again for another movie review, this time for Expendables 4, which I just got out of the theater watching not too long ago. And I know this film is pretty much getting railroaded by the critics and stuff like that in terms of Rotten Tomatoes, and even a lot of audience members seem to be disliking it, or at least a lot of like YouTube reviewers and stuff. The average audience or the main fan base for these movies seems to be mostly liking the film but not loving it. Looking at the IMDb reviews, there's a lot of like 7 out of 10s, like saying the movie's good but not great. And of course critics hated all the Expendables movies, so you're not really, when it comes to like B-movie action flicks, critics, what they say, it doesn't really matter, let's be honest. So how do I feel about this film, Expendables 4 or Expendables or whatever? I liked it. I didn't love it. It didn't blow me away. I didn't really like it, but I liked it. In terms of the Expendables movies, I really liked the first one. I thought it was a good to pretty good like action B-movie flick. It did take itself too seriously at points, which kind of dampened some of the fun in the movie, but overall, it's pretty good. I really had fun with it. Expendables 2 I thought was great. I think it's the best of the 4 flicks, easily, because it gives more time for action for Schwarzenegger and Willis and Stallone at the same time, which is what you really wanted from these films. It's got Van Damme as the villain, of course. Any drawbacks, the main fight at the end with Van Damme is a bit too short. It is overall a good fight between Stallone and Van Damme, but it's just a bit too short. But yeah, overall that one's great. Expendables 3, the theatrical version, which is PG-13, I thought was decent. Alright to decent. I didn't really like it, but I didn't really hate it either. It's kind of like in that time waster category. The unrated version I thought was good. I like the extra violence stuff that's in the unrated version overall. I would give the unrated version like a solid 3 out of 4. I did like that one. But at the same time, though, that one is the weakest of the first 3. It has too much like time dedicated to these young newcomers who aren't really action stars. Like, they want to introduce young new characters. If they wanted to introduce like a younger Expendables team and all that, that's something for like a spin-off, not for like a third film in the series or whatever. When you go to these films, you want to see the original or the older action stars. That's what they're all about, the B-movie action stars and just action stars in general. You don't want to see like these young kids like Kellen Lutz or whatever, who actually does like an okay job in the movie. He's not terrible. But yeah, overall, the unrated version, I liked it. Another thing is the fight at the end with Stallone and Gibson is good, but it's mostly just kind of a brawl. Once again, it's too short, but it was good. It was shorter than it was more even-sided between both parties in the third one, but at the same time, it was shorter than the Van Damme versus Stallone fight, which made it come off weaker. So the Van Damme versus Stallone fight is better slightly than the Stallone versus Gibson fight. But yeah, overall, it's a 3 out of 4. Good movie, B-flick, for the unrated version. Expendables 4, I'll go ahead and say it is the weakest of the 4 movies. It is not terrible for what it is. How you feel about this movie will largely depend on who you are as a person and like what your personal tastes are and what your criteria is for judging films. If you're going into this film with a serious like critical hat on and judging this film as like a legit like holding it up to like a high standard or something, like if you judge all movies the same or whatever and you're judging this film as like a serious piece of cinema or whatever, then you're probably gonna think this is like okay to bad. Because if you're judging it like that, in my opinion, you're judging it the wrong way. This is a B flick. All of these Expendables movies are B flicks. They're all silly and dumb at points and in parts, but they're fun. That's the whole point of them. This is the type of series you would expect if you got all the 80s and 90s like action movie stars together with all their who done all these like B-movie action flicks and all that and put them together in one movie. You're gonna get an over-the-top cheese fest. That's just what you're gonna get. Like I heard some critics saying the dialogue is so awful. The dialogue is no different than the other 3 movies. Which yeah, you might be saying, well, that's still awful. That's not saying anything. But this is the type of dialogue you would expect to get from a movie like this. It's the same thing with the Fast and the Furious series. They know what they are. They don't pretend to be anything else. And you're either into them or you're not. That's pretty much just all there is to it. So you either like these types of film or you don't. But yeah, overall, I'd give it a 3 out of 4. It's still not, like I said, it is still the weakest of the 4. It is good B-movie flick for what it is. I like how this one's a bit more grindhouse because it really embraces the R rating and there's more like blood and guts at points, like more straight up violence. I did like that. At the same time, just like all the other films, my same criticism is leveled here. The CGI effects are bad. This is probably easily the worst CGI and like computer generated optical visuals or whatever of the entire series. They're pretty bad here, and they do take you out of the movie at points, but after a while I got used to it. When it comes to hand-to-hand action, no, I think this is probably the best of the series because you got the dude who is like in the Raid movies as the villain. And then you got Tony Jaa or whatever from I think he was in the Unblock movies as one of the new Expendables or an Expendable who teams up with Jason Statham. And that's one of the big flaws of this movie is it spins. I like that this movie wants to transfer the lead role from Stallone to Jason Statham. You think Stallone is killed at the beginning, but the way his death is like done, it's like so like he just gets blown up in a plane, and the way it's done is like so like wishy-washy or whatever. It's like he probably ain't dead. There's something going on here because if he was killed that way, then that's kind of a lame death. But at the same time, I would have appreciated more, honestly, if he was just killed by the main villain, because that would make it more understandable with having to pass the torch to Jason Statham with him trying to get revenge for Stallone's death. But when he gets to the end of the movie, it's like, spoiler, Stallone's still alive, and he helps like take out the main bad guy or whatever at the end, played by Andy Garcia, who in a twist turns out to be the main villain, Ocelot or whatever, who's trying to like start World War III so he can profit off of it. But when Stallone did show up at the end, though, it was rather predictable, but at the same time, or cliche, I should say. But it was still kind of fun and cool to have him there because when the movie starts out, Stallone and Statham like bantering together, and it is pretty fun. They have really good chemistry together, and it's just fun just to watch them together. It's enjoyable just to see these two actors together on screen. But that's kind of the problem with this. The other Expendables, they just don't get a lot of time here, and the team is much smaller here. They got a character here who's supposed to be the son of Antonio Banderas from Part 3, and he acts just the same as Antonio Banderas, and he does an overall good job, but at the same time, even though I warmed up to the actor by the end, I was like, yeah, I like this guy, and I like the fact that they kind of gave one of the Expendables a kid, but at the same time, I'm like, why didn't you just keep Antonio Banderas? You could have had the same thing and had an actor there that more people would want to see who go to these movies, so that was weird to me. I understand why Terry Crews is in here. There's a whole behind-the-scenes thing on that. You can look that up. And you got 50 Cent in here. I'm not a big 50 Cent fan, but overall he does okay. He's fine. And I've heard a lot of grumblings about like Megan Fox in this movie and all that. Watching her in the film, like I'm gonna be honest, most action stars are not good actors, but they just have charisma that you like seeing on the screen. That's what makes them fun. Like Schwarzenegger, so he's larger than life. He's just a blast to watch. So Megan Fox not being a good actor, that's not a detriment to being in a type of movie like this. It just depends on what kind of on-screen charisma you have for this type of role, for this type of energy for this movie. And she's okay. She does what she's supposed to do in the movie. She's just there mostly for sex appeal. There's even a scene at the end where she's like, not even wearing a bra and she's wearing like a white shirt and you can see her boobs straight through it. Not bad. But yeah, she does some action scenes. She does like all right during most of the action scenes. Overall, she's okay when she tries to when they try to make her take over the Expendables team through the middle of it, and they got Jason Statham like going off on his own, and he goes and finds Tony Jaa, and he's trying to track down the Expendables team so he can take down the person who he thinks killed Stallone. When she's taking over the team or whatever, you never really feel it or buy it that she's leading the team. It doesn't really work. And her and Statham do not have very good chemistry. When they're just messing around the house or whatever, and then they wrestling around, they end up having sex. You buy that. But when they're trying to be they actually really care about each other and all that, you don't feel it. You don't buy it. It doesn't work. She just kind of feels like a booty call, really. But overall, I think Megan Fox was okay here. I don't like Megan Fox. She didn't really need to be in this movie. But overall, she's okay for what she is here, for what she's doing. With them, if they make a part 5, would I want to see her back? Not really. But if they did bring her back, would I feel terrible about it? As long as they put her in a side role. If they keep her in a side role in these movies, I think she could be okay just to be there as a side character. But this romance with Statham, it ain't working. It would have been better if they brought back Ronda Rousey or something. That's another thing about this movie is it wasn't originally supposed to be Expendables 4. It was just going to be a Jason Statham spinoff. And you can tell most of the movie is centered around Jason Statham. And I've heard some people complain about that. And I can understand that. Most of the other Expendables are sidelined. And that is kind of annoying here because I did want more action from Dolph Lundgren especially. I wanted him to have a fight scene or something. I wanted more from them. Instead, they're mostly just all there to back up Jason Statham. But the guy from The Raid who plays the villain, he does a really good job here. He's probably the best. He's a bit underused. He doesn't get enough screen time. But for what he is in the movie, he does a really good job. He's easily, at least in my opinion, the best villain of all 4 films. And his one-on-one fight scene with Jason Statham at the end of the movie is really good. It's the best hand-to-hand combat scene in the entire franchise. And that's one thing, bonus for the movie, is having Jason Statham as the star and the new lead of the movies. Or the movie is much more focused on martial arts fighting and all that, where Stallone, is not a martial arts fighter, he's a brute force dude. So it's much cooler to see the martial arts moves and all that, so that's really fun. And Tony Jaa in this, he kicks ass too. He teams up with this Asian girl named Lash or something like that at the end, who's a new expendable. She like uses a whip and everything, like a metal whip, something like that. And they team up together at the end to take this one dude out who's like second in command to the dude from the raid or whatever. And it's a pretty cool fight scene on the boat or whatever. Yeah, there's like I said, there's fun, good hand-to-hand combat scenes here. In terms of all 4 movies, I'd say this, in my opinion, I think is the best hand-to-hand combat of all 4 films. So yeah, it's fun like that. And another thing with other Expendables movies is, even though they were team movies as well, they mostly just focused on Stallone and Statham as well. The first one had a little bit more focus on like Jet Li or whatever, but for the most part, these films have always been Stallone and Statham movies. But the difference with the other ones is that it still had the team together in the majority of the movies as a unit, like kicking ass. Here, the team is just kind of like, first of all, Jason Statham's not on it for a long period because he's like separated and doing his own investigation. And then the team itself, they just kind of get captured or whatever, and they don't get to do much. And mostly the movie's just kind of focusing on Jason Statham like whooping ass, and him like ending up rescuing the team and leading them to victory. So that's really tells you that, yeah, this was meant to be like a Jason Statham spin-off movie. This was not meant to be an Expendables movie, and then they just quickly reworked it into an Expendables film. But yeah, overall, I like Jason Statham though, so even though the movie didn't give me enough with the actual team doing action, the action I got with Jason Statham was still decent to good, so it was still enjoyable. And I got over the bad CGI eventually, and also because this is a B movie and it knows it's a B movie, it doesn't pretend to be anything but a B movie. The plot is just like, it's just almost non-existent. It's just about this dude from the raid or whatever trying to like start World War III so he can like profit off of it or whatever, and Andy Garcia's in league with him, and he's like the actual boss, Andy Garcia is. And it's just like, the plot is just paper thin. It's just mostly about the action with films like this. It's just a B action movie, and if you like those types of movies, I think you will probably enjoy this if you like Jason Statham, because he's the star. And for that, I would give this a 3 out of 4. It's good, it's enjoyable if you like these types of movies. Just like if you like the Fast and the Furious franchise, I think you'll like this. And I like most of the Fast and the Furious movies. The newest Fast and the Furious, like Fast X, I thought was like alright. I almost gave it like a 3, but the way it just ends or whatever with no ending, if it would have been like one movie, I think I probably would have really liked that one, because Jason Momoa is a blast in that. Even Fast 9, which was bad, I guess still gave it like a 2.5, because it was bad in a way to where it was entertaining. This is better than Fast 9. Yeah, so despite the bad visuals and all that, it's a fun B movie. 3 out of 4 for what it is. And I liked it, and I'll pick it up on Blu-ray. I say this too, it does feel like this movie wasn't totally finished before they released it, because of some of the visual stuff looking worse than the other 3 movies. It feels like this movie was not totally done before they put it out, and it also feels like some stuff in the movie has been cut out, like maybe there is a possible extended cut or something that could be released. But if this does well overseas, because that's how the Expendables movies make back their budgets, if this does well overseas and we get a part 5, they need to amp it up and bring back some of the actors from like the other 3, like bring back Antonio Banderas at least, and Schwarzenegger in maybe a supporting role again or something, give him a little bit more to do, like a fight scene or something. And they need to kill off some of the characters. I know that Stallone is friends with all these guys, and these guys like really don't want to be killed off or whatever, or a lot of them don't, because they all have egos and everything. But for the best of the movies, they need to kill at least 1 or 2 of them off. It's time for like Randy Couture to go. Him or Dolph Lundgren, one needs to go. But yeah, overall, if they make another one, they need to bring back some of those old members from like part 3 or 2 or whatever, and they need to throw in some like new people who we really want to see as audiences. Like Jackie Chan needs to be put in here finally and given a really good role, and they need to put somebody like The Rock or Vin Diesel in here as well. So yeah, overall, 3 out of 4 is good for what it is. I liked it, but I can understand why somebody wouldn't if you're not into these types of movies. But for what it is, 3 out of 4 good. I liked it. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again.